Business tycoon Fu Hangzhou fell overnight, hopelessly addicted to his cold and stunning wife. Nanji came happily ready to celebrate her boyfriend's birthday. But the moment she opened the door, she saw a cheating couple tangled together. Their intimacy was shameless, the scene unbearable to watch. Her heart shattered and she turned to run. Never had she imagined her boyfriend would betray her. At the end of the corridor, she suddenly crashed into a broad, solid chest. The man looked down and instantly recognized her. Nanji bit back her tears, refusing to break down in front of anyone brushing past him. Yet the next second, the man grabbed her wrist. When she turned, she realized it was the very CEO she had once negotiated with. Fu Hangzhou's eyes locked on Nanji as if time had never changed her. He leaned closer and asked, "Miss, do you need help?" Nanji sneered inside. Help? What could he do? Beat up that cheating scumbag for her? Nanji suddenly remembered. This man was the CEO of Fu Group, a renowned entrepreneur, heir to one of the top elite families. His empire spanned design, real estate, healthcare, hotels. Maybe he truly had the power to crush that cheating bastard. A bold idea flashed through her mind. She stepped closer and teased, "Do you really want to help me?" Before he could answer, she reached the doorway, threw her arms around him and kissed him hard. Perhaps it was her sudden initiative that ignited Fu Hangzhou. His fiery response was nothing like the cold impression she once had of him. Just then, Jiang Che appeared at the door, only to witness Fu Hangzhou holding Nanji tightly in his arms. Rage flared and Jiang Che was about to charge in when Fu Hangzhou turned his head, flashing him a wicked, mocking smile. Jiang Che froze in disbelief. That man was the CEO of Fu Group, Fu Hangzhou. Impossible. In the next instant, Fu Hangzhou kicked the door shut with one long leg. Darkness fell and his deep voice echoed in the room. Nanji only gave a soft in reply. Hearing her response, Fu Hangzhou was more than satisfied that he scooped her up in his arms and tossed her onto the plush waiting bed. The man tugged at his tie, a hint of displeasure in his voice. "This room was prepared for your boyfriend." Nanji's slender fingers brushed along his neck as she whispered, "Now it belongs to President Fu." At 4:30 a.m., Nanji glanced at her phone. 30 missed calls, all from Jiang Che. She had no desire to call back. The moment he betrayed her, her heart had already turned cold. Just then, the bathroom door opened. She lifted her gaze. Fu Hangzhou stepped out, droplets still trailing down his sharply defined muscles, disappearing beneath the edge of his towel. His physique was nothing short of striking. Nanji froze for a brief second, her eyes lingering on him, but he didn't shy away, calmly allowing her gaze to roam, fearless and unashamed. The atmosphere was clearly not suited for small talk. Nanji scoffed at herself and said, "Don't you think it's inappropriate to stare at me like that?" The man leaned in, fingers brushing her cheek as he murmured, "Would you mind if we went again?" In the haze of desire, his breath lingered at her ear. "Sorry. Some things are simply too addictive." By morning, Nanji woke with her body sore and aching. She turned to glance at the man still sleeping beside her. Before he woke, she slipped out of bed in a hurry. After all, what happened last night was nothing more than an accident. Nanji made her way to a remote suburb, only to realize that even hailing a ride here was nearly impossible. Just then, a car stopped in front of her. To her surprise, it was Lu Xingxi. Rolling down the window, he smiled politely. "Miss Nan, where are you headed? It's tough to get a ride at this hour. Hop in, I'll give you a lift." Since he said so, Nanji didn't refuse. She had only met Lu Xingxi a handful of times, mostly when she was with Jiang Che. Still, she knew this man's reputation well. Gentle, courteous, a true gentleman to women. Yet in the very next moment, she regretted her decision. She cursed herself silently. How had she overlooked the weight of that single word? "We?" In the back seat sat a man in perfectly pressed black trousers and a tailored white shirt. His tall frame radiated an innate air of nobility. Who else could it be but Fu Hangzhou? Seeing her hesitate for so long, he finally spoke, voice low and steady. "Not getting in?" Left with no choice, Nanji obediently climbed into the car. The car fell into silence. Nanji tried to make herself invisible, eyes shifting toward the window. Lu Xingxi was about to strike up a conversation with her. But the moment he caught Fu Hangzhou's expression, he shrank back instantly, muttering inwardly, "Interesting." Grinning, he whipped out his phone and dropped a bomb in the group chat. "Congrats to old Fu. The iron tree has finally bloomed. Our boss has fallen under a woman's skirt. The chat exploded like depth charges. Everyone demanded to know which fairy had descended to Earth, some even accusing Lu Xingxi of being drunk and spouting nonsense. Soon after, Lu Xingxi got out midway, leaving the atmosphere inside the car unbearably tense. Alone with Fu Hangzhou, Nanji felt like she could barely breathe. She quickly said, "President Fu, I'll get off here. My home's nearby. No need to trouble you." Fu Hangzhou raised a brow, seizing her wrist. "What's wrong? Afraid now? Last night your courage seemed plenty bold." After a moment's silence, Nanji lifted her gaze and replied coldly, "If I remember correctly, it was mutual consent between us. Surely President Fu isn't here to settle scores afterward?" Fu Hangzhou slowly removed his glasses, his piercing stare fixed on her. Then he leaned in close. "Miss Nan, are you interested in becoming my long-term bed partner?" Nanji stared at him like she'd seen a ghost, never expecting the legendary Fu Hangzhou to say something like that. She didn't hesitate, shaking her head firmly. "I refuse." Meanwhile, Nanji's phone buzzed. It was a message from Jiang Che. "Ignoring my calls. I'm at your building's entrance. Don't you dare come back. Believe me, I'll make you pay. And don't think clinging to Fu Hangzhou means anything. You think he actually needs you. You're just another woman to him." Nanji took a deep breath, muttering to herself, "Lunatic." Just as Fu Hangzhou looked away, her hand slid onto his thigh. In a low voice she teased, "Want to come over to my place?" Ever since she sent that message, everything seemed to spiral out of control. In the mirrored walls of the elevator, their figures stood side by side. The elevator stopped midway and a group of people entered. Nanji quickly stepped back to give way, but a firm hand locked onto her waist, freezing her in place. A neighbor from upstairs greeted her warmly, then glanced at Fu Hangzhou with a curious smile. "Your boyfriend?" Nanji forced a stiff smile, replying, "Just a friend." Yet her body tensed further, for Fu Hangzhou's hand was slowly wandering upward. The neighbor chuckled knowingly. "Ah, I get it. Young couples and their little games." Thankfully, the elevator finally reached her floor. Nanji hurriedly dragged him out, fumbling with the key as she rushed inside. But the moment the door closed, she was pinned against the wall, his hot breath brushing against her ear. Fu Hangzhou gripped her chin and asked coldly, "A friend? Tell me, do friends get invited upstairs like this?" Nanji couldn't find the words. Why had she changed her mind again? How could she get rid of one problem, only to fall straight into an even bigger one? Her fingers brushed against his hand almost involuntarily. "President Fu, do you want the truth or the lie?" Fu Hangzhou pressed closer, his presence growing bolder, caging her completely. Just then, the phone on the entryway cabinet began to ring. Nanji frowned, dread pooling in her chest. She drew a sharp breath, but Fu Hangzhou, impatient, reached out and answered it himself. A furious voice erupted on the other end. "You dare bring Fu Hangzhou upstairs? What the hell have you been doing all this time? Nanji, I'm warning you, without me you won't survive a single step in the company. Get rid of Fu Hangzhou immediately." Nanji's chest heaved with fury. That bastard relied on his powerful father to run rampant at the company. Fu Hangzhou seized her face, pressing his lips onto hers the next second. His voice dropped in warning, "Don't bite so hard." On the other end, Jiang Che completely lost control. "Damn it! Nanji, get down here right now. Do you hear me?" Fu Hangzhou's eyes darkened as he stroked her lips. "Say it, let him hear." Wrapping her arms around his shoulders, Nanji leaned in playfully, planting a kiss at the corner of his mouth. Fu Hangzhou slid off his glasses, murmuring coolly, "Wise choice." He lifted the phone and spoke flatly, "Busy." The instant Jiang Che heard that cold, unmistakable voice, he panicked and hung up. Fu Hangzhou gave a low sneer. "See, he doesn't even have the guts to face me." What Nanji hadn't expected was the cost of enraging Jiang Che. From the doorway to the living room, from the living room to the bathroom, and finally to the master bedroom. By the time it was over, she didn't even have the strength to lift her eyelids. Fu Hangzhou was simply too much. If he'd been a hired escort, she thought bitterly, her entire salary still wouldn't be enough to cover that kind of after-sales service. Gazing down at her, Fu Hangzhou's lips curved into a faint smirk. "So how does it feel using me?" Nanji gave no answer. She was simply too exhausted to speak. Fu Hangzhou pressed a kiss to her forehead and said softly, "I'll give you a week to think about it. I expect a satisfying answer." Yet in the days that followed, Nanji pushed his words completely out of her mind. After all, they were nothing more than fleeting lovers, and she had never intended for anything long-term with him. More importantly, she had no time to dwell on it. Every ounce of her energy was spent chasing clients. Jiang Che's revenge turned out to be far more roundabout than she expected. The anniversary events and dealer conferences she had secured at the Wanxing Hotel were now abruptly cancelled. She was just one step away from becoming a department manager. If it all collapsed here, Nanji couldn't accept it. Now, standing in the hallway outside a private room at the Imperial Club, she drew a deep breath before knocking on the door with a practiced smile. Inside, the atmosphere was already boisterous, the table crowded with bottles of liquor. A teasing voice called out, "Isn't this Jiang Che's little darling? I thought she was a new hostess. Gotta admit though, his girl's body is top-notch." Then came Jiang Che's deliberately cruel tone. "Darling, don't make me laugh. She's just a pretty face fooling people, nothing good underneath." Nanji turned her head and saw it clearly. Jiang Che already had another woman sitting in his lap. Jiang Che sneered viciously. "What's scared now? Crawl over here and drink every drop of this liquor. Do it and I might give you the chance to kneel and beg for forgiveness." Nanji's lips curled faintly as she retorted coldly, "So if I drink it all, you'll let me go?" The room erupted with jeers. Jiang Che clenched his jaw, tongue pressing against his cheek. "Drink first, then we'll talk." Nanji strode straight up to him and without hesitation, poured the entire glass of liquor over his head. "Bastard, cheating scum. You dare insult me. You think my patience is endless. You've been given face and thrown it away. So what if you get a green hat?" Enraged, Jiang Che raised his hand ready to slap her across the face. But before he could, Nanji's palm cracked hard against his cheek. At that very moment, the private room door was kicked open. Fu Hanzhou strode in, his dark eyes shadowed and menacing, with Lu Xingxi following behind. He advanced without pause, his sharp features half veiled in the flashing neon lights, his aura overwhelming. Jiang Che's face stiffened as he forced an awkward smile. "What brings you here? Please sit." Fu Hanzhou sank onto the sofa, tugging at his tie, his gaze locking coldly on Nanji. "Come here." Jiang Che's eyes burned with hatred. These days he had wished nothing more than to grind her to dust. No wonder she had dared to come alone. She'd secretly called Fu Hanzhou. Fu Hanzhou cast a terrifying glare his way. Jiang Che's hand trembled instantly and he let go in fear. Then Fu Hanzhou's gaze met Nanji's. A faint smile tugged at his lips. "Do you really need me to come and drag you over myself?" Nanji drew in a deep breath and no longer spared Jiang Che a glance. She walked straight to Fu Hanzhou, sat down beside him, all the while plotting an excuse to slip away. Suddenly, the man leaned closer, wrapping an arm around her slender waist. His voice brushed her ear. "Pretty bold, coming here alone?" A shiver shot through her. Since when had he gotten this close? The crowd exchanged uneasy glances. Fu Hanzhou's display of dominance was as good as a public declaration. This woman belonged to him, at least for tonight. Jiang Che's eyes burned red as he shouted, "Brother Han, all this for a woman? You'd throw away your brothers?" Brothers? Since when were they ever brothers? One of his friends stood quickly, trying to intervene. "Enough already. You really want to cross Fu Hanzhou? Let's go." Jiang Che shoved the man aside and lunged forward, reaching to drag Nanji away. Fu Hanzhou's gaze darkened. He snatched up a heavy ashtray and hurled it with brutal force, the blow landing squarely on Jiang Che's head. Jiang Che let out a scream, clutching his head as blood began to flow. Fu Hanzhou's voice was icy. "Looks like I gave you too much face. Call Jiang Bin, tell him to come take his son home." At his command, his men immediately moved, dragging Jiang Che out of the room. Seeing Fu Hanzhou remain silent, the others quickly rose to their feet and slipped out one after another. Fu Hanzhou tilted her chin up, his fingers brushing against her lips. "I've helped you again. How do you plan to repay me this time?" The implication in his tone was far too obvious, making Nanji clench her fists. She couldn't understand. Why was it always her? He leaned close, whispering at her ear, "Have you thought about me these past days?" Nanji shook her head immediately. When would she ever have time for that? Besides, who ever heard of a fling that lingers after it's over? There was never going to be anything more. His lips curved. "But I have. The way you moaned, it was beautiful." Nanji almost choked. This man could twist a single sentence into something dripping with innuendo. She shot back dryly, "President Fu, I remember what the financial magazines said about you. Hearing this now, I'd say your image is collapsing." Fu Hangzhou gave a low chuckle. "Those reports are all nonsense. What use do I have for an image?" Nanji rose, unwilling to drag it out further. "President Fu, if there's nothing else, I'll take my leave." Suddenly, his strong hand caught her, voice blunt and direct. "Your answer?" Nanji hadn't expected him to press the question so openly. Steadying herself, she asked back, "President Fu, can you answer me one thing? Do you like me?" Fu Hangzhou lifted his gaze, stunned for a brief moment. At last, his face remained blank as he replied, "You're overthinking." Nanji's heart sank, yet at least his clarity was better than Jiang Che's lies cloaked in the name of love. She exhaled lightly. "I was only guessing. Since that's the case, I'll refuse your proposal." Fu Hangzhou fixed his gaze on her. "Have you decided? Can I at least ask why?" Nanji answered seriously, "I just went through betrayal. My trust in men is basically zero. I end this state. I have no intention of starting a relationship." With a cigarette between his lips, Fu Hangzhou lit it slowly. "But I wasn't talking about love. I meant a long-term arrangement. Just sex, no feelings." Nanji felt continuing the debate was pointless. Calmly, she said, "If rejection is hard for you to accept, then as thanks for your help today, I can at least treat you to a meal." "No need. Since we can't agree, let's end it here. Until I find myself more interested, you may leave." With that, his eyes no longer lingered on her. Nanji turned and walked out. He crushed the cigarette but hard between his fingers, letting out a cold snort. Whatever desire he had for her vanished completely. Half a month later, after her breakup with Jiang Che, trouble began to surface at work. Her supervisor lashed out harshly, "Even such basic data and you made mistakes. Are you still an intern? I'm beginning to question your professionalism." The night before, she had rushed to compile emergency reports after a midnight notice, only to be blamed again when errors appeared. She knew the mistakes weren't hers. Someone wanted to set her up. At that moment, her colleague Mi Xiaoxue suddenly remarked, "Nanji's been getting a lot of complaints lately. Could it be that her personal drama is starting to affect her work?" Nanji ignored Mi Xiaoxue and calmly placed the printed backup report on Manager Kai's desk. Manager Kai clearly hadn't expected her to be so prepared. As they stepped out of the office, Mi Xiaoxue's face darkened. "What's the point of working so hard? Jiang Che has already spread the word. Things are only going to get tougher for you." Nanji shot her a sharp glare and snapped, "Whether I can endure or not is my business, save your concern." Lin Youxiao hurried over, rolling her eyes at Mi Xiaoxue. "You used connections to get in here and you've got the nerve to accuse her of relying on Jiang Che?" At that moment, Nanji glanced at her phone and saw a headline gossip piece. Today's top news claimed Fu Hangzhou might be dating, and his rumored girlfriend was a supermodel. Her steps faltered slightly, a wave of disappointment tightening her chest. At the department gathering later, to her surprise, Fu Hangzhou also appeared. Dressed in a flawlessly tailored suit, he radiated presence, with Lu Xingxi following close behind. Spotting her, he greeted coolly, "Miss Nan, we meet again." Manager Kai froze in astonishment. "Young Master Fu? Young Master Lu?" Fu Hangzhou's gaze swept the room, landing briefly on Nanji. She instinctively shivered under that look. Without breaking stride, Fu Hangzhou stepped straight into the VIP elevator, his demeanor saying, "Talk if you want, I'm leaving." Lu Xingxi offered Nanji a smile. "Come upstairs sometime." Mi Xiaoxue asked curiously, "Nanji, you know young Master Lu?" She nodded. "We've crossed paths before." Just then, the door opened and a waiter brought in a bottle of liquor. One glance at the label left everyone stunned. "Worth at least 100,000. There must be a mistake. We didn't order this." The waiter bowed slightly. "No mistake. This is a gift from young Master Lu. Also, tonight's entire bill will be covered by him." Nanji's chest tightened. Her ties with Lu Xingxi were shallow, hardly enough for him to go out of his way for her. Could this actually be Fu Hangzhou's doing? Manager Kai suddenly stepped closer, laying a hand on her shoulder. "Nanji, I truly think highly of you. Young Master Lu has just opened a resort, exotic style, very promising. If our hotel could partner with it, the position of department manager would be yours for sure." Nanji discreetly brushed his hand off and shifted away, replying evenly, I'm not very close with young Master Lu, but if I get the chance I'll ask on your behalf. Inwardly she scoffed. What a joke. Even their top boss Fu Hanzhou himself might not land that project. Yet this old fox thinks he can. Ridiculous. Manager Kai's eyes flickered. Really? No need to wait for next time. Young Master Lu is right upstairs. Nanji's smile faded. She could guess well enough. Manager Kai was likely probing on Jiang Che's behalf, testing whether she still had any ties to Fu Han's hotel. Yu Xingxi might fool the others, but Jiang Che would never be so easily deceived. So she laid it out plainly. Manager Kai, I won't hide it. Young Master Lu truly has nothing to do with me, that he probably just did it out of courtesy for someone else. Manager Kai's expression darkened. Oh? Then whose favor was it exactly? Nanji met his eyes steadily and said, Fu Hanzhou. Manager Kai's body jolted. But, just now, President Fu didn't even greet you. Nanji tucked her hair behind her ear and replied casually, We had a little spat a couple days ago. You know how rough it's been for me in the company lately. With that, she excused herself to the restroom to catch her breath. Manager Kai stood there, weighing her words carefully, that if what she said was true, then with Jiang Che pushing to drive her out, he'd have to rethink his stance. At the sink, Nanji lifted her head only to find Mi Xiaoxue had followed her in. With a sneer she said, You've got skills. If it's not Jiang Che, then it's Lu Xingxi. Jumping from man to man and still pretending to be some saint. Must be exhausting. Nanji tried to hold back, but Mi Xiaoxue's painted lips kept running. Keep up the act. I'll enjoy watching how long you can fake it. Nanji snapped. She grabbed Mi Xiaoxue's hair and slammed her head toward the sink. Since you can't speak like a human being, let me wash that filthy mouth of yours. With a cold smirk, she added, You know why Manager Kai behaved himself today? Because I told him the one interested in me isn't Lu Xingxi, it's Fu Hanzhou. And I'm not the patient type. Push me again and see what happens. Terrified, Mi Xiaoxue's makeup ran, her clothes were soaked, and she realized she was no match for Nanji. She snatched up her bag and bolted. Nanji found it almost funny. There were far too many people like her in this world. All bark, no bite. The weaker they are, the more they think you're easy prey. At that moment, the person who stepped out was none other than Fu Hanzhou. Without sparing her a glance, he walked past, turned on the faucet and rinsed his hands, his long, elegant fingers catching the light. Nanji quickly shifted closer, handing him a tissue. She was certain he had overheard everything just now. In a soft voice she said, Mr. Fu, about what I said earlier, I apologize. Yet Fu Hanzhou gave her nothing. Not a word, not a look. It was as if she were a stranger. As he walked away, even the familiar trace of his scent faded with him. Nanji sighed inwardly. What is with this year? Every time I open my mouth I seem to run straight into him. Pulling out her phone, she opened their chat window and typed a sincere message. I'm sorry. But it never sent, he had already blocked her. Staring at the glaring red exclamation mark, Nanji realized for the first time just how impossible Fu Hanzhou could be. Suddenly, her phone rang. A shrill female voice came through, laced with malice. Be careful on your way home tonight. Nanji hung up without changing expression, though her heart sank. Jiang Che, madman. At this point, going back to bow her head to him was impossible. Her only crime was being born without background, without power. When Fu Hanzhou returned to the private room, Lu Xingxi immediately teased, What took you so long in the restroom? He gave him a playful nudge on the shoulder. I even went to look for you. The waiter said you'd gone down to the second floor? Considering the VIP suite already had its own bathroom, going outside was odd enough. Heading to the second floor made it downright suspicious. Fu Hanzhou's face darkened, his mood soured. He sat down heavily, lighting a cigarette with clear irritation. When the hostesses tried to toast him, he waved them off, uninterested. Pointless. None of them are half as captivating as her. Unable to stay any longer, Fu Hanzhou left early. The group later headed out to catch cabs. Nanji stood at the curb, still wondering what exactly Jiang Che was planning. Suddenly, a black Bentley rolled to a stop. Someone muttered that it was Fu Hanzhou's car and all eyes turned toward the street. Mi Xiaoxue, who had been holding back all night, seized the moment with glee. Some people just love to brag, claiming ties with President Fu. But look, he doesn't even stop for her. Just then, another car following close behind pulled up directly in front of them. The passenger side window lowered slowly. It was Fu Hangzhou's assistant, Xiao Yudat. He glanced at Nanji and said evenly, "If you have any business needs, you can contact the number on this card." Nanji froze, then quickly recovered. "Assistant Xiao, may I schedule a meeting with President Fu to thank him in person?" Xiao Yu replied evenly, "I'll ask him." As the convoy of luxury cars pulled away, her colleagues fell into dead silence. Lin Youxiao rolled her eyes at the pale-faced Mi Xiaoxue. Pathetic clown. Nanji opened her car door, but something felt wrong. Inside sat a paper bag. Shifting slightly from within came faint squeaking sounds. Like a rat, her skin prickled all over. She was about to call the police when footsteps approached from behind, drawing closer and closer. A hand suddenly patted her shoulder. Terrified, Nanji screamed, "Let go! Let me go!" Fu Hangzhou frowned, speaking lowly. "What happened? What's wrong?" Stunned, Nanji whipped her head around and finally exhaled in relief. It was him. Her voice trembled. "Someone was following me. Someone tampered with my car. There's something inside that bag." Fu Hangzhou tore the bag open, revealing a half-dead rat. No wonder the stench had lingered earlier. Grinding his molars, he tossed the bag to a bodyguard trailing behind and ordered coldly, "Check her car, then call the police." Fu Hangzhou pulled her tightly into his arms, opened the car door and said in a low voice, "Get in. Come with me." Nanji didn't move. Fu Hangzhou narrowed his eyes. "What, refusing again? Suit yourself." Just as he turned to leave, his coat hem was tugged. She looked up at him with misty, rain-soaked eyes. "I can't move. My legs feel weak." Fu Hangzhou paused, then gave a mocking laugh. "Not that bold after all, but plenty fiery. You knew what happens when you provoke a mad dog, yet you still did it." Even as he scolded her, he bent down and swept her up into his arms. His tall frame made it effortless. Once inside the car, he didn't set her down. She practically ended up on his lap and instinctively tried to shift away. But the moment she moved, his sharp gaze cut across to her. "Miss Nan, don't rub against a man unless you mean it." Nanji was left speechless. She muttered, "President Fu, didn't you leave earlier?" Fu Hangzhou arched a brow. "You care about my whereabouts that much?" She shook her head quickly. "At the intersection, people said that Bentley leaving was yours." His reply was faint, almost ghostly. "I've been here the whole time." Nanji nodded, whispering softly, "Thank you for today." Fu Hangzhou abruptly lost interest in talking, his tone turning cold. "It wasn't as if I stopped here just for you. No need to say more." Nanji fell silent, awkwardness thick in the car. Tonight he had clearly given her an easy way out. But would a man as notoriously ruthless as Fu Hangzhou really lend a hand without reason? The car rolled to a stop at the entrance of her residential complex. Nanji hesitated before getting out, instinctively glancing at Fu Hangzhou again. His sharp eyes flashed as he stepped out first. Bracing herself against the door, Nanji slid off his lap, her legs tingling from numbness. She turned, ready to thank him, saying she would treat him to dinner someday if he was willing. Instead, she bumped straight into his chest, startled. Fu Hangzhou had already taken her hand, leading her firmly toward the complex. Embarrassed, she murmured, "President Fu, you can just leave me here." He frowned. If Jiang Che could send someone to tamper with your car, he could just as easily have someone waiting at your door. That's exactly the kind of thing he'd do. His cold gaze pinned her. "So you really think I shouldn't walk you up?" Without waiting for her reply, he pulled her along toward the building. At her door, Nanji tried to make her words sound casual, not suggestive. "President Fu, would you like to come in for a glass of water?" Fu Hangzhou arched a brow. "No, but if you don't close that door, I'll take it as an invitation." The door shut immediately. Fu Hangzhou raised his brow, laughing in irritation. Ungrateful little thing. She realized he hadn't left. Peeking through the peephole, she saw him still standing outside, her chest tightened. Surely he wouldn't harass her like Jiang Che, would he? Tonight she was bone-tired with all the chaos of late. The thought crossed her mind, maybe it was time to quit and start over. But the moment she stepped into her bedroom, something felt wrong. Someone had been there. Her scalp prickled with dread. Just as she moved to call the police, the closet door burst open, Jiang Che's twisted face leering out at her. With brutal force, he yanked her hair and slammed her against the wall. "Back this late. So all those nights leaving on time were just an act, to dodge me at the office. Nanji, where do you think you can run? Didn't I tell you, I'll make you die in the ugliest way possible. Nanji tried to fight back, but Jiang Che was faster. He gripped her hair tighter, pinning her with his body. How did Fu Hanzhou have you, huh? Tonight I'll do the same. Then I'll send him the video, plaster your photos everywhere. Let the whole world see the fraud you are. She didn't even know if Fu Hanzhou was still nearby, but her desperate cries tore out anyway. Fu Hanzhou! Fu Hanzhou, help me! Fu Hanzhou! Jiang Che sneered viciously. You think he still remembers what you are? Just a cheap whore who's been used. Save your breath. You'll need it later when you're begging me to spare you. He dragged her, forcing her down onto the bed. That instant, Nanji felt ice grip her heart. This was the end. Pulling off his belt, he jeered, still not giving up. It's the middle of the night. Who's going to save you now? Better think about how you'll serve me later. With every ounce of strength, Nanji seized the lamp from the nightstand and smashed it down on him. Jiang Che was completely enraged, roaring with madness. You hit me, bitch! I'll kill you! Suddenly, his body was slammed backward by a powerful force, crashing hard against the headboard. Fu Hanzhou's sharp brows narrowed slightly as he flexed his wrist with icy calm. When Jiang Che saw it was Fu Hanzhou, his fury only spiked higher. But Fu Hanzhou's eyes burned with a terrifying ferocity that he loosened his tie with a chilling tug. The look in his eyes made Jiang Che falter, stammering, What are you doing? Don't come any closer. Fu Hanzhou grabbed him single-handedly, dragged him into the living room and snatched up a vase from the coffee table, smashing it down without hesitation. At first, Jiang Che could still spit curses. Soon his voice fell silent. Nanji sat frozen on the bed, stunned, barely able to process when Fu Hanzhou returned. His aura was always cold, but now it was deliberately restrained. That he looked at her and asked in a low voice, Can you move? Nanji nodded, her eyes clinging to him with raw dependence. He really came. She hadn't expected that in the end. It was him who saved her tonight. If not for his presence, she dared not imagine the outcome. Pack your things. From now on you'll follow my arrangements. With that, Fu Hanzhou turned and strode further inside. Hearing the commotion, the bodyguards from downstairs rushed up. Seeing the scene inside, one asked anxiously, President Fu, are you all right? It had been years since the Fu family's men had seen Fu Hanzhou this furious. Fu Hanzhou clenched his molars and strode toward Jiang Che, each step deliberate. His voice was low and lethal. Impressive. To still make me this angry, you're one of the few. His polished leather shoe came down hard, grinding over Jiang Che's fingers. Jiang Che cried out in pain, only to have his head yanked back by the hair, forced into a helpless arch. Fu Hanzhou's voice cut like steel. Which hand did you use? How many times did you hit her? And what were you trying to do to her? Jiang Che struggled instinctively, but against Fu Hanzhou's strength he was powerless. Panic surged as he shouted, Fu Hanzhou, you'll kill me. Fu Hanzhou gave a chilling smile, his voice dropping to a razor's edge. Shoo, if you frightened her, then yes, I just might kill you. He was smiling, but his eyes were frozen with murderous ice. Jiang Che couldn't fathom it was just a one-night stand. She's not even Fu Hanzhou's real girlfriend. Why is he this furious? Desperate, he pleaded. I swear I won't do it again. Let me go. I'll never come near her again. Too late. Fu Hanzhou's reply was cold and final. What followed was nothing short of a one-sided beating. With his mouth gagged by the bodyguards, all that slipped through the doorway were muffled gasps and choked cries. Nanji shoved clothes into her suitcase, forcing herself to stay calm, though her trembling hands betrayed her. Suddenly, the door swung open, making her flinch. She turned to see Fu Hanzhou standing there. Finished packing? He asked flatly. Nanji nodded. Yes. He stepped closer, his shadow stretching behind her, then pulled her into his arms. His large hand stroked her hair gently. Don't be afraid that he won't come back. Just those words were enough to steady her heart. Back in the car, Fu Hanzhou leaned over to fasten her seatbelt. I'll have the bodyguards sweep through your place. The evidence will go straight to the police. Nanji's fingers tightened, her body stiff. He frowned slightly, then added, I've already sent him to the station. Nanji exhaled in relief. Should I file a report? Fu Hanzhou checked his watch. It's too late tonight, but I'll have someone arrange it tomorrow. For the first time, Nanji truly felt at ease. She whispered a quiet thank you. This time, her gratitude was different. It carried trust. She didn't even ask where he was taking her. All she knew was that she couldn't bear to go back to that house. Nanji had assumed he'd arrange for her to stay at a hotel, but when the car turned into a gated villa community, she realized Fu Hangzhou was taking her to his own home. The lights at the entryway flicked on, and his domain opened fully before her. At the end of the hallway, he set her suitcase down inside a room, then looked back at her calmly. "Go wash up." Seeing her stand frozen, he frowned, voice laced with mockery. "What, afraid of me? Relax. After a fight like that, I've got no interest in that sort of thing." Nanji pressed her lips together. "That's not what I meant. I'm just afraid of your girlfriend." Fu Hangzhou blinked, surprised, then shot back. "Who told you I had a girlfriend?" Flustered, she turned her head aside, unable to meet his eyes. Suddenly, he asked, "So, what's the result of your little test?" Nanji blinked, completely lost. She had no idea what he meant. Fu Hangzhou's cool gaze lowered, bearing down on her. Choosing a partner on the basis of being single and available, without ever looking into their past, that kind of test is downright foolish. With that, he brushed past her without a backward glance. Only after a pause did Nanji realize he was calling her judgment awful, reckless enough to choose a man with violent tendencies. But more than that, she could feel it. Fu Hangzhou was genuinely angry. In the master bathroom, Fu Hangzhou stood beneath the shower head, water cascading down his frame while his phone buzzed on the sink. After a while, he slipped on a robe and finally answered. On the other end, Lu Xingxi's voice carried the noise of the private room. "Why did you hand Jiang Che over? Weren't you supposed to have gone home?" Fu Hangzhou's tone was indifferent. "I wanted to. Do I need a reason?" Lu Xingxi choked on the reply, then drawled, "Don't tell me, you're actually serious about her?" Standing by the window, Fu Hangzhou countered coolly, "Would you stand by while a man beats a woman?" Lu Xingxi clicked his tongue. "Don't dodge. You know exactly what I mean. That woman, Nanji, she's not simple to you." Fu Hangzhou's voice dropped, deep and magnetic. "Even if there were feelings, do you think your woman could rank higher than a city's finest?" Before Lu Xingxi could retort, the call was cut off. Fu Hangzhou frowned faintly. For the first time, he wondered, had he made a mistake tonight? Meanwhile, Nanji lay tangled in thoughts, not knowing how to face him, and knocking on his door in the middle of the night. That would carry a meaning far too obvious. Just as she turned restlessly in bed, footsteps approached outside her door. "President Fu, is something wrong?" she asked softly. His voice came through, clipped and cool. "If you've got bruises, remember to use the medicine. It's at your door." Nanji opened it and saw a box of ointment on the floor. Picking it up, she realized she hadn't even noticed her injuries. Fu Hangzhou's attentiveness. It didn't match the ruthless image his reputation painted. The next morning, as she came downstairs, she heard voices. Fu Hangzhou was speaking to his assistant. "That'll do for now. Go handle it." The noise downstairs quickly faded. Fu Hangzhou glanced up and called her down. Nanji nodded and descended, only to see the dining table already set with an array of breakfast, both Chinese and Western. Pulling out a chair, she sat down and asked softly, "Aren't you eating?" Fu Hangzhou unfolded his newspaper, answering coolly, "I already did. If you've got nothing urgent today, take a leave from work. Go to the station to give your statement. Assistant Zhao will accompany you." Nanji hesitated, then asked, "How long will Jiang Che be locked up?" Instead, Fu Hangzhou looked up and asked, "How long do you want him locked up?" She knew the answer, not long. What truly scared her was his retaliation afterward. Perhaps it showed because her face had gone pale. Fu Hangzhou's tone softened. "Don't worry, his family won't be able to clear things up that quickly. At the very least, he won't be troubling you again." Nanji knew his style. If Fu Hangzhou said it, he would make it happen. His gaze lingered on her. "Stay here for now." She hesitated. "Isn't that inappropriate?" His lips curved faintly. "What's inappropriate about it?" Gathering courage, Nanji spoke. "President Fu, you've helped me so many times. There has to be a reason. Can I take it to mean you simply need a bed partner to satisfy your needs? And I just happen to be the one you chose. Nothing to do with feelings." Fu Hangzhou's eyes turned cold, his voice dropping like ice. "And what if that's true? If I recall correctly, every single time, you were the one who took the initiative." Nanji showed no guilt. "I admit the experience has always been good. By that standard, our relationship is equal in this aspect, isn't it? But I won't be your kept mistress, nor will I accept your gifts. Let's keep it simple. When we need it, we call each other. How about that? Fu Hangzhou raised a brow, slightly surprised. Between being my lover and my bed partner, you chose the latter? Nanji knew full well that being his lover would grant her access to resources she'd never even dreamed of in her 20+ years. But she didn't want that. Yes, I'll only accept the latter. And keep your gifts. I don't want the mess when things end. A faint shadow of displeasure crossed Fu Hangzhou's brow. Nanji added coolly, I'm not the kind of woman who takes advantage. Unless... President Fu, are you saying you actually want to date me? Fu Hangzhou remained silent. Nanji thought for a moment, then said, your physical strength is already the best gift. For me, it's a brand new way to relieve pressure. Fu Hangzhou suddenly stood, his voice clipped. Suit yourself. To him, it felt as though this woman truly feared nothing. Jiang Che might be called her ex-boyfriend, but he, Fu Hangzhou, refused to be compared. Before Nanji could respond, he turned and strode away, the door slamming with a sharp snort. She blinked in confusion. Why did he suddenly get angry? Later, once in the car, Assistant Zhao handed her a file. This is the statement from last night. He's claiming it was just couples play, not attempted assault. Nanji skimmed it, her voice firm. I won't accept a private settlement. I'll stick to principle. Zhao nodded. President Fu said he respects your decision, and he'll find you a good lawyer. Nanji's brows tightened. She had to admit she owed Fu Hangzhou for this. If not for that one message she sent, he never would have been dragged into this mess. Strictly speaking, the Jiang family's filth had nothing to do with the Fu group at all. Near the police station, Assistant Zhao reminded her. Madame Jiang showed up last night. She's in a volatile state. My advice. Avoid a direct confrontation if you can. Nanji thought to herself that whether conflict broke out depended entirely on the other side. She had no intention of provoking it. The moment she entered the station with Zhao at her side to give her statement, Madame Jiang stormed toward her, voice sharp. So you're the one suing my son, huh? Her hand shot up, ready to slap Nanji across the face. Nanji swiftly caught the woman's wrist, her voice icy. Striking someone inside a police station. Are you openly defying the law? Madame Jiang gnashed her teeth. Don't act high and mighty. You're just out to ruin my Jiang Che, aren't you? Nanji flung her hand aside and retorted coldly. Instead of throwing a tantrum here, maybe ask yourself what your son did. That if he hadn't broken the law, I'd have no reason to press charges. Trembling with rage, Madame Jiang spat. How much do you want to drop the case? All this talk, at the end of the day it's money you're after. Stop pretending you're above it all. Nanji arched a brow and turned to the nearby officers, her tone firm. You all heard her. She just attempted to assault me. I will not accept mediation. I believe in the law. Whatever sentence he deserves, that's what he'll get. Madame Jiang's face twisted, curses still spilling out. Nanji didn't bother engaging. Everything at the station would be reported to Fu Hangzhou by Zhao anyway. When Lu Xingzi walked into Fu Hangzhou's office, Zhao was still delivering his voice report. Fu Hangzhou lifted his gaze, cool and sharp. You've got this much free time. No company to run, so you show up at mine in broad daylight? Lu Xingzi spread his hands. You threw the Jiang father and son behind bars. Now everyone's asking me what it means. You'd better give us a straight answer so we know which way the wind's blowing. Fu Hangzhou took a sip of coffee, tone flat. Break the law, go to jail. Someone's got to teach them that lesson. Lu Xingzi brushed a hand through his styled hair. Looks like the brat's in for a while then. Anyway, Song Jiao's throwing a yacht party later. It's his girlfriend's birthday. You coming? Fu Hangzhou thought of Nanji, calculating quietly. She'll be out of the station by then. I already have plans. Lu Xingzi shivered theatrically. Ugh, that sounded sappy. And lately she's been hard to get a hold of. Don't tell me you're actually catching feelings? After finishing her statement, Zhao escorted Nanji out of the station. Miss Nan, do you have time later? President Fu invited you to lunch at a private restaurant. She nodded. You go back to the office. I'll head there myself. Since she'd be dining with him at noon, Nanji decided to stop by the mall first to pick out a thank you gift. Just then her aunt called. Yutong got into a fight at school. The other kid fell down the stairs and ended up in the hospital. We're out of town. Can you go? Yang Yutong had caused trouble again. She was only Nanji's aunt's stepdaughter. Otherwise, Nanji wouldn't have wanted to bother. Still, she hailed a cab straight to the hospital. Nanji found Yang Yutong slumped on a bench in the hallway, looking utterly disheveled. The moment Yutong saw her, she frowned. Why is it you? I didn't ask you to come. It must have been your meddling aunt again. A mistress pretending she's my mother. Ridiculous. Nanji's face darkened instantly. She locked eyes with Yutong and said coldly, my aunt and your father fell in love freely. Stop spitting the word mistress. My family hasn't taken a cent from yours. Young Yutong, my aunt may tolerate you, but I won't. You'd better behave yourself, because if this lands you in prison, I'll be the first to celebrate with firecrackers. Yutong's eyes flickered with unease. Prison? For real? Nanji turned away, voice edged with impatience. I asked the doctor. The girl you heard is a dance student. Use your brain. If she can't dance again because of you, do you think they'll just let it go? You're apologizing to her teacher later. This could turn into a matter of life and death. They arrived at the VIP ward and knocked. A man's voice answered from inside. Nanji froze. The voice sounded oddly familiar. When she stepped in and saw the figure, her brows knitted. Of all people, how did this troublemaker Yutong manage to provoke him? Xie Lidong stood by the window, his face etched with impatience. But when he turned and spotted Nanji, surprise flickered across his expression. Nanji's grip tightened on her bag, cursing Yang Yutong inwardly. Troublemaker. That if it had been anyone else, Xie Lidong wouldn't have spared them a glance. He'd have had them thrown out already. His gaze swept over her before he spoke coolly. Manager Nan? Catching his tone, Nanji carefully chose her words. It's our fault for failing to discipline the child properly. Whatever compensation you require, we'll do our best to provide. Xie Lidong arched a brow. My uncle has only one daughter, spoiled by the whole family. Whether she can keep dancing is still uncertain. And tell me, what could you possibly offer as compensation? Nanji's mind raced, searching for an answer. Suddenly he asked, what's your relationship? Nanji froze, then replied, she's like my younger sister. His lips curved into a mocking smile. Funny, she doesn't seem to treat you like an older one. He barked coldly, get out. I've got questions for your good sister. Yang Yutong bolted for the door, clearly dumping everything onto Nanji's shoulders. If not for her aunt's sake, Nanji wouldn't have wasted even a second dealing with such an ungrateful brat. Xie Lidong sat on the sofa, sipping his tea. Jiang Che's mess, does it have anything to do with you? Nanji nodded, somewhat. He lit a cigarette, took a slow drag and said flatly, my family doesn't need compensation, but I'll give you some face. I won't have your little sister arrested. Nanji's heart lifted. Young Master Xie, is that true? He arched a brow. Only because of Hanzhou that I'll talk terms with him myself, next time. Nanji wasn't the sentimental type, but she silently made a note. This man was someone she'd have to remember. With a faint smirk, Xie Lidong watched her leave, then pulled out his phone and sent a message to Fu Hanzhou. As soon as they stepped out of the ward, Yang Yutong drawled, so, we can go now, right? Nanji shot her a cold look. I should have never come to clean up your mess. Yutong froze. What's that supposed to mean? Mad I caused you trouble? You could have walked away earlier. I never asked you to interfere. Nanji pressed the elevator button, sneering. Funny how you've got backbone now. Why were you silent in there? Seems you know damn well no one's going to shield you outside. Yutong glared daggers at her. Nanji gave a short, angry laugh, folding her arms. Oh, and what's that look supposed to mean? Yutong snorted. He was checking out your body. You and your aunt, just a pair of seductresses. Nanji's eyes sharpened. You'd better show my aunt some respect. Otherwise, before anyone else makes a move, I'll be the one to teach you a lesson on your father's behalf. Yang Yutong fumed, stomping her feet in rage. Meanwhile, Fu Hanzhou had been waiting at the restaurant for quite some time, thinking darkly she must have been held up. Why isn't she here yet? Just then, a text came through. His gaze chilled. She had promised lunch with him, yet she'd gone to see Xie Lidong instead. He immediately dialed her number, wanting to hear her explanation. On the line, her voice was soft, laced with shyness. I'm sorry. Something came up at noon. I had to stand you up. Let me make it up to you tonight. I'll cook for you. What do you like to eat? The irritation bubbling in his chest inexplicably faded with that single message. Anything? He asked in a low tone. Nanji nodded earnestly. I'll try that. I'll do my best to please you. After a pause, his deep, husky voice carried a teasing edge. What I'd really like to eat is you. Nanji froze, her cheeks burning. It was the first time she'd ever heard him say something so blunt. Fu Hangzhou coughed lightly, chuckling as he softened the moment. Relax, I was joking. Just make whatever you want. After hanging up, Nanji noticed a tall man in a suit approaching from the corner. Miss Nan, he said respectfully, we were sent by President Fu. It's about to rain. Shall we escort you to your destination? Nanji blinked. President Fu's men? You've been following me this whole time? The man looked slightly embarrassed. We're private security hired by the Fu Group. It's only to ensure your safety in case of threats. Unless absolutely necessary, we won't reveal ourselves. Though a little displeased, Nanji knew it was a sensitive time. I'm heading back to President Fu's villa. Just drop me at a supermarket nearby. That evening, Fu Hangzhou sat through an impromptu meeting, his phone constantly in hand as he checked Nanji's messages. Someone finally asked, President Fu, you've been staring at your phone all night. Something urgent? Fu Hangzhou replied lightly, picked up a stray kitten last night. Just wondering if she's bored being home alone. The word kitten carried far too many meanings. Everyone present was shrewd enough to understand. They exchanged knowing smiles and said, we won't disturb President Fu then. Fu Hangzhou rose to his feet. I'll be heading back first. Let's gather again another time. In the kitchen they couldn't help themselves and kissed. Fu Hangzhou swept her into his arms, carrying her toward the bedroom without breaking the heat between them. Hours later, Fu Hangzhou woke first. He pinched her cheek playfully, only for Nanji to swat at his hand and mumble, stop it. When she finally opened her eyes, his familiar face filled her vision. She let out a startled, ah, sorry. Fu Hangzhou pulled her tightly into his embrace. It's my fault. If being my woman means you don't even have the right to get upset, then the problem is mine. Nanji froze for a moment, surprised at how easily he could soothe her. She didn't know how many other women he might have said the same thing to, but in that instant, it felt genuine. Quietly she confessed, actually I lied to you. The reason I was with Jiang Che wasn't simply because I needed a boyfriend. It was because on my birthday he was the one who sent me a message right at midnight that I hadn't celebrated in years. Maybe it was a foolish reason, wasn't it? That night, Nanji felt a tenderness and care from Fu Hangzhou she hadn't known before. He was no longer the cold-eyed man who stood apart and pointed out her flaws. He was someone who held her with warmth. The next morning, after washing up, Nanji sat down at the table to have breakfast with Fu Hangzhou. In a casual tone she said, I need to head home today. Fu Hangzhou glanced at her. And when will you come back? She smiled. Reach out to me. If I'm not busy, I'll come. Fu Hangzhou then asked directly, ever thought about changing jobs? She nodded. I have. But I've worked so hard for the department manager position. The opportunity is right in front of me. I don't want to give it up. Fu Hangzhou said evenly, if you ever change your mind, come to me. Back at the office, whispers immediately started swirling behind her. Lin Yoxia rushed over, panic in her voice. Something's happened. Look at this. Nanji took the phone, frowning as she read the news. The Jiang family scandal had exploded. Chairman Jiang was exposed for massive money laundering, making headlines and dragging the group's stock price down. People quickly jumped to conclusions. As Jiang Che's girlfriend, she might also be tainted by association. Before long, someone sneered with schadenfreude. Manager Nan, the company's investigation team wants to see you. Nanji took the elevator up to the executive floor, where 2 men and 1 woman were seated. One of them asked, do you know why we called you here today? Nanji blinked innocently. Not really. The man snorted. Manager Nan, don't play dumb. Everyone knows about Chairman Jiang and Jiang Che, along with your relationship with him. Since they'd laid it bare, Nanji didn't bother with pleasantries. She placed her phone, already recording, right on the table. Their faces shifted instantly. One leaned forward. So tell us, did you ever accept large sums of money or expensive gifts from Jiang Che? Did he ever mention what he was up to? Nanji let out a sharp laugh, meeting their eyes. I agreed to cooperate with the company's investigation, but that doesn't mean I'll sit here like a criminal under interrogation. From this moment, I refuse to continue. When you report to upper management, make sure that recording gets played back in full. The former assistant hadn't expected such defiance that he frowned. What kind of attitude is that? Arms crossed, Nanji shot back coldly. Whatever attitude you give me, I'll return it in kind. Nanji had nothing more to say. She turned to leave, but the former assistant snapped, slamming to his feet. Is this how women handle problems? Always so emotional? Nanji held up her phone. I can't pretend I didn't hear that. Assistant Yuan, with your bias against women, I think it's only fair the entire female staff gets to hear this recording. His face immediately paled. Nanji eased her tone slightly. There's no need for suspicion. Jiang Che and I broke up long ago. Just 2 nights ago he ambushed me at my own home. I've already filed a case with the police that if you're that curious, you can visit him yourselves. With that she walked out. Back at her desk, a wave of helplessness hit her. She had lived through worse, scarier nights, and all she could do then was watch, powerless. By the afternoon, an email blast hit the company's inboxes and was quickly reposted on the Wanxing Group forum, pushing the scandal into full blaze. The post headline was blunt and baiting. Shattered rich girl dream. Sea Queen's true face exposed. Nanji's first thought was that she and Fu Hanzhou had been photographed, but when she clicked in, she let out a faint sigh of relief. The photos were indeed candid shots, capturing her face clearly. Judging by her uniform, it must have been taken 2 months ago, her stepping out of a luxury car in Wansheng's work attire. The comments underneath were downright vile. Boyfriend in prison and she's already landed a sugar daddy. Sea Queen exposed for what she really is. Facing the sidelong glances of her colleagues, Nanji decisively issued a public statement. She demanded that those behind the post apologize, or she would pursue legal action to defend her rights. Without hesitation, she called the police to file a report. Someone tried to dissuade her. The police won't help, that I'll go find Sister Man, she'll know how to handle this. Nanji frowned slightly. Could it be Tang Monroe? Elsewhere, Fu Hanzhou sat in a meeting, his phone screen frozen on the message. Are you free this weekend? A flicker of displeasure crossed his mind. She just moved out and now she won't even reply. What is she so busy with? Abruptly, Fu Hanzhou stood, his tone cold. The numbers are wrong. Redo them, that I have other matters. Meeting adjourned. With that, he strode out, his long legs carrying him swiftly from the room.